2011. I'm your host, Chris Waters, and now folks, E3's been a lot about seeing familiar franchise names and their latest edition, the sequel, the third. But what we have on stage now, a familiar franchise name to be sure, but a different direction that I think you're going to be pretty excited about. Joining me is Mike Jones from Tokyo, all the way here from Capcom producer on Resident Evil Operation Raccoon City.
Thanks for having me. Hi, everybody.
Mike, welcome to the stage. Busy E3 for you guys so far this year?
Oh yeah, we're booked solid, and we got a huge line for Raccoon City just around the corner there for people waiting to play 4-player co-op.
Yeah, we've got the characters looming behind you on posters here. Now, Operation Raccoon City. Raccoon City is a familiar name to anyone who's played Resident Evil.
Yep.
But this is a different type of Resident Evil game, so give us an overview for folks who maybe aren't familiar.
Yeah, Operation Raccoon City definitely has a new spin on it. So it takes place during the original Resident Evil 2 and 3 timeline. So we're going all the way back to September of 1998 to the original T-virus outbreak, right? Mm-hmm. But the twist is this time you're playing as the bad guys. You're Umbrella, right? And your mission is to go in there, kill survivors, cover up evidence, make sure nobody has any clue that Umbrella was responsible for this terrible outbreak, right?
So that sinister force that we've been fighting against for years.
Yep.
Now we get to step into their shoes.
Right? So you're the Umbrella Security Service, totally off the books, Blackwater kind of special forces. You've had special training. You know what the T-virus is. You know what lickers are, tyrants are, hunters are. In fact, you can control them and use them to your advantage. And you're not there to survive. You're there to kill.
You're there to just wipe the slate clean, so word doesn't get out about all the horrible stuff you did.
Yeah, exactly.
Now we're seeing some gameplay here, and like a brutal stomping kill.
Yeah, so we're with Operation Raccoon City. We saw this as an opportunity to go back and put a little bit of the grit, a little bit of the gore, a little bit of the violence back into Resident Evil. So you're going to see a lot of brutal killing. You're seeing a Spec Ops guy bleeding out right here, blind fire exploding. I don't know if we're seeing this on the feed, but these guys are ruthless, right? They don't think twice. If their friends get infected and turn into zombies, they'll grab them and use them as a shield without thinking twice, right?
Now this is an interesting mechanic we were talking about a little earlier. Let's get into it. Your friends can get infected and turn into zombies.
Yeah, so for the first time in Resident Evil history, you can actually get infected with a T-virus and turn into a zombie. But instead of just getting infected and immediately turning into a zombie, we had a little fun with it. And the way the mechanic works now is if you get bit by a zombie, if you get strangled by a licker, there's a variety of ways to get infected. Your health gauge will turn into a blue timer and start counting down. And when that happens, your screen will kind of freak out a little bit. But the interesting thing is because you're infected, zombies will now ignore you on the field, right? So they think you're a zombie. So first of all, you get an advantage of zombies aren't bothering you. Number two is your damage model changes. You don't take damage in the chest, arms, legs, only to the head if you're a zombie. So you can use that to your advantage, especially in versus. You can kind of think of all the ways you can start using that. And then if you've got a medic on your team, they can heal you, they can cure your infection, or if you've got antiviral spray, you can heal yourself. But once that timer counts all the way down, you turn into a full-on zombie and start attacking your teammates.
You got no longer at control. Yeah. You don't maul them. You just watch as your character.
And you got to wait for your buddies to shoot you in the head so you can respawn.
So it's almost you can play with fire, get infected on purpose to sort of run a mission.
Yeah, but if you mess up, you're gonna you turn into
and maybe your buddies are gonna pay the price.
Yeah, exactly.
Now we're seeing the player here is a woman with a mask on. Now you've got distinct character models and distinct abilities for each character.
So actually this is Four Eyes. She's the field scientist, and she's actually just been infected. So you're seeing this happen right now, and I think she's about to turn into a zombie.
But this is that limbo time.
Yeah, so here she goes.
But now she's a zombie.
And you see the respawn counter down there. You got to kind of wait.
Oh, and she's got that sweet zombie lurch going.
Oh yeah, they get mad. Anyway, so we've got 6 characters on the USS, the Umbrella Security Service team, who are all their own unique soldier class, character type. And they each have their own set of passive and active abilities, right? So there's a surveillance type, a field scientist, a medic, assault, recon, and our field scientist, the assault, who's our leader, Lupo. You actually see Four Eyes and Lupo here fighting. Here we're cutting the lickers now.
Oh, but anyway, who's that's getting shot? Let me just ask this real quick.
The lickers here?
Yeah, those guys are moving a little
classic
quicker.
Resident Evil 2. Okay, Four Eyes is getting strangled right here by a licker tongue. So these guys, everybody loves lickers. And,
all right.
Sorry. So back to the character. Sorry,
I got a
We're all
little
over the
distracted
place.
by the liquors. You know.
Yeah. If you see anything up here, we can talk about it.
Excellent.
So we've got 6 character classes, all with their own unique passive abilities and active abilities. But the interesting thing is in this game you're playing 4-player co-op, so you only get to have 4 of those classes on your team at any given time, right? So if you have a surveillance guy, he can share mini-map information and scan the mini-map, and everybody can have that information. If you don't, that changes what information you have in the field. If you have a medic, and somebody gets infected, you can help them out. If not, you got a different problem on your hands. So you kind of got to build your team based on how you want to play.
Now, you were talking about the Umbrella security services here, but when you're playing in versus mode, another team is playing as a whole different squad.
Right, so at the same time as the Umbrella Security Services in Raccoon City doing their dark stuff, the U.S. government has quarantined the city, and they've sent in their own special operatives, the Spec Ops, to do the exact opposite, right? Find out what's going on with the outbreak, save survivors, and so they're in there, running around doing their thing. And so that's kind of where you get your basic TPS gameplay. TPS is usually Team A with guns versus Team B with guns, right? Just shooting at each other in cover.
Right.
But in the Resident Evil universe, you've got zombies, lickers, tyrants, hunters in there just indiscriminately attacking everybody.
Tyrants?
Oh yeah, and a lot more that I can't talk about right now. But we're calling that 3-corner conflict, right? So instead of just you and me firing at each other, now we've got zombies that might come from the side, lickers that might attack my opponent while I'm attacking them. Creatures like hunters that have specific AI, on the battlefield, whichever character is doing the best, they're like the alpha enemy. They're going to go after the best character on the battlefield.
So the hunter, the zombie sort of AI will adjust depending on the ebb and flow of the human.
Well, right. It depends on the creature type. Like lickers are going to pick up the stragglers. Zombies are just going to kind of wander around and attack whoever's right in front of them, or whoever's bleeding. Hunters are going to go find the strongest players on the field and attack them. But all of the classes, all the skills, all the mechanics, like the infection mechanic we talked about, are designed around this 3-corner conflict, idea, right? That I could get bit by a zombie, get infected, and then use that to my advantage while I'm fighting, the special operatives and Spec Ops.
Right. Now, so we've talked a little bit about the characters on the USS team.
Right.
Our fans of the series love their Resident Evil characters. Are we going to see some of the familiar faces crop up on the Spec Ops squad?
Well, not necessarily on the Spec Ops squad, right? I mean, we've been very careful to make sure that we're keeping the story intact, right? That you're going back in time, and you can either choose to walk the line and leave the Resident Evil sort of timeline and history alone, or you can do things like kill Leon Kennedy, forever changing Resident Evil history. But they're there. They're running around doing the same thing that they were doing in 1998. Leon and Claire are trying to survive and running around the Raccoon City Police Department.
Yeah.
And you will cross paths with them and a lot of other characters that I can't talk about right now.
Excellent. Yeah, folks were definitely wondering about that. Now, in recent Resident Evil games, we've seen sort of exotic locations. But we're back to a familiar one. Talk to me about what it's like to reinvent a Raccoon City, as a third-person shooter, as a more fast-paced experience, and on a much more advanced generation of console.
Yeah, so obviously we've been working with Slant 6 and Capcom, in Vancouver, and this is the first time they're doing a full cross-platform development for us. So PS3, 360, and PC. So that was a big jump in terms of their technologies. That was the first big hurdle that we're working with Slant 6 to overcome. And then obviously, taking this whole environment, this whole world that just used to be these 2D, matte palette backgrounds back in PlayStation 1 days, and turning them into full-blown 3D environments. We're certainly having a lot of fun with that. Trying to be true to some of the old layouts. You're going to come across a lot of familiar locations: the Kendo Gun Shop, the Stagla Gas Station, the Raccoon City Police Department. There's more stuff that I can't talk about right now.
All right.
But it's been a lot of fun to create that stuff, working with Slant 6, and bring them to life, in a full 3D environment. But also looking at it from a new perspective as Umbrella, right? You're not the good guys anymore. You're the bad guys, and so you're seeing events and you're seeing things that maybe you didn't see, in the original.
Because you're on the inside.
Exactly.
You're ahead of the curve, whereas the Spec Ops are just trying to catch up.
Exactly. And when you might see, Leon and Claire run by doing their thing, you were doing something completely different around the corner that maybe they never saw, right? So we've been very careful of, like I said, weave a story that doesn't step on the original canon and the original series, but you will, like I said, cross paths with everybody and get to explore fully 3D Raccoon City.
Excellent. Now, that fully 3D reminds me of something we spoke about earlier, and that's sort of the combat dynamic. You know, in a typical third-person shooter, as you've been saying, a lot of you're engaging, you know, the enemies at one point and at distance, and maybe you're trying to flank, but you know, you are generally engaging them a little far away. But when you've got zombie hordes walking around and running up on you, there's a lot of melee combat. There's a lot of up-close action as well. Talk to me about the melee system. You know how?
Yeah.
Well,
so
how does that work?
the basic, you know, TPS player package that we have is certainly, you know, all there. You can take cover, you can blind fire, you can throw grenades, and that basic, you know, sort of foundation of TPS action is there. But like you said, zombies can come out from under cars, they can come out of walls, lickers are crawling on the ceiling, you don't know where anything's coming from. So what we've done is we've expanded the basic melee attack to actually be a 360 situation where you can attack in any direction just with the press of one button, right? So you can attack behind you, you can attack to the side of you, and then from there you can do things like brutal kills, instant kills on zombies, as well as, you know, Spec Ops characters. You can do things like grab a zombie and use it as a shield, you know, if you're not near cover.
It seems a little dangerous. You're like right in the bike range.
No, you're USS. You know what's going on. You train for this. You know what's going on.
Fair enough.
Yeah, you've seen this a million times. Which is why you're running and gunning, right? I mean, that fiction lends itself to why this is a run and gun TPS and not necessarily a slower paced survival horror. But you've got a 360 melee system, as well as there's a new kind of sidearm function we've added to the player package. So you can actually quick fire in any direction you would like as well. So, you know, and a lot of times in a TPS, you know, you're aiming at your target, something comes up to the side of you, and you kind of got to do this move.
You turn a little bit more deliberately.
With the press of one button, you can fire left, fire right, fire behind you at an angle, whatever you want.
Just whip out the sidearm.
Right, without having to turn and keeping your eyes on your target, right? So we've given you a lot of tools to deal with sort of, you know, what's beside you and what's behind you in the Resident Evil environment.
Very cool. Now, before we wrap up here, Mike, we just have a couple questions that people have been peppering us with, coming in from both sides of the Atlantic. Canada and Sweden want to know about drop-in, drop-out co-op, because we talked about versus, but how's the cooperative play work? You know, if a player wants to join in, maybe hop out.
Well, we do have a party system, right, where you can party up and create a game and look for other folks. And obviously you can drop out anytime you want. Drop-in system and all the specifics of how co-op works. You know, we're going to talk a lot about that later on in our campaign. But we certainly don't have to disappoint on the versus side as well. We've got some great matchmaking mechanics. We got, you know, a lot of cool stuff going on, and it should be, you know, smooth and easy to use.
Excellent. Now we've got Martin from California, hoping and crossing his fingers for a demo. You got any word on that coming up?
Demo? We got a demo right here. If you're at E3,
got a demo on stage, but if you're not lucky enough to be here, you guys plan to maybe
we'll have more news on that.
Something?
We'll have more news on that soon.
Fantastic. Well, just all that remains is reinforce one more time what platforms and when can people get their hands on Operation Raccoon City?
Resident Evil Operation Raccoon City, it's kind of a mouthful. It's coming out this winter, 360, PS3, PC, and we're really excited about it. 3-quarter conflict, you're the bad guys, versus mode, infection, class-based team, you know, third-person shooter. We're really excited about it.
Excellent, Mike. Thank you so much for coming
Thanks
by
for
and
me.
showing that off. Looking forward to playing as the bad guy for once. You know, being on the inside and moving around real quickly, trying to subdue all that craziness. Speaking of craziness, it's E3, and we are touring the booths, and that action continues. Homer Rabar checking in over at Microsoft. Their booth was so big, we had to make that into a two-parter. Let's check out the second phase of that exploration right now.